Yep. Ask the podcast coach for August 15th, 2026.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it is Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from TheAverageGuy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy rainy, super rainy and hot. I'm ready for fall. Are you ready for fall? I'm ready for fall.
Well,
summer needs to end.
Here's the fun thing today. We got a beautiful day, and we are having an air show.
Ooh.
And I had an F-16 fly over my house. The police said, "Hey, these planes are here. They're going to be flying really low to the ground." And I'm here to tell you, it like made the trees move. It was like maybe 100 feet from my house. So that's going to be fun because it's going to start. Well, it's actually already going. So if you happen to hear as I'm talking today, that's why. So
happening.
Always fun. But so you're ready for fall.
I'm ready for fall, and I'm ready for maybe some coffee.
There you go. We could get is it time for a pumpkin everything yet?
Oh, you're right.
But that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. And I have to remove that and put this on the screen. There he is. Mark, the one and only podcastbranding.co. This is a guy that just makes beautiful artwork. He makes beautiful websites. He makes beautiful business cards. He makes beautiful PDFs, whatever is facing your audience. You want to make it look good because it's your first impression. And the beauty of it is Mark's got that great marketing hat where he's going to talk to you, kind of figure out what the vibe is of your show, and then let him do the marketing stuff. He's been doing it for 30 years. Holy cow. And, you're the podcast person. He's the marketing guy. You get you two together. He's going to give you a couple examples to pick from, and then you pick your favorite, and you can check that off. And the longer you do your show, the cheaper that artwork gets because it just pays for itself. So when you're ready to look good, go over to podcastbranding.co. Tell them Dave and Jim sent you.
I like that. The longer you have it, the more value it has for the cheaper it gets. What did you say?
The longer you have it. I mean, if you think about it, I think he did the School of Podcasting.com. And I want to say it's been a while since he designed that. And I know when you first buy it, you're like, wait, how much is it? Holy cow, it's not that expensive. But the longer you hold that logo, you divide it by, if it was, if I did it 5 years, okay, well, it's, whatever, $50 a year. Okay, now I've done it 10 years. Well, now it's $25 a year, whatever. Don't do math live, huh?
Or at least make the numbers easy, right? When you do 100 divided by 2 is 50, 70, 25. Yeah, that's good. I hadn't heard you say that before. It's a good way to think about it, right? Holding the value over time. Anyway, speaking of value, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com this week, the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings. That's I had never heard of this movie, Dan. So again, the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings. A new episode that is out over there if you want to check it out today, based on a true story podcast.com. Make sure you're checking out, speaking of graphics, make sure you're checking out Dan's album art. It's just stellar. It's amazingly creative. And so check it out today. And as always, Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
There we go. And we got an update from Ralph. He says, I finally threw in the towel. Ralph had an 85-inch TV behind him. Yeah. And it was kind of cool because he could make it look like he's out on the farm or in the city or whatever it was.
Yep.
And he says, I finally went to a more traditional studio setup. I just got tired of trying to make the reflections work. That was the problem. You got all these lights and then, I remember when I had the apartment and I had a big TV behind me, and that was the whole thing. It's backlighting because, if you've got, I got a white background with a big School of Podcasting logo. So you're backlighting yourself, and then you got the reflections of the lights. But the good news is, Ralph, man, when you play video games now, you got an 85-inch TV or movies or whatever it is it's going to go. So
they do make some anti-reflective screens for those. It's just for 85 inches. It's just that's a big sheet to put on there. Yeah. It's the big challenge, right? We see this. If you ever want to watch what the Weather Channel is doing on their the presentations of the weather and some of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
They are really taking that's really where, you know, it used to be all that was fake, right? It was a green screen, and then they would get up there and they still look off, right? Their monitor is off to the side.
Yeah,
so when they're turning and looking, right, it looks like they're looking at it. But I've noticed some of the big networks going to actual large screens.
Yeah.
And they have kind of special screens, super expensive. They either, you know, the weird thing is about that is you have to turn them kind of based on your camera, but you kind of got to turn them down to almost nothing.
Yes.
The camera sensor will pick up all that light and just wash you out. So you think you get this TV, and then live it's dim. It's super dim. You're like, I don't think anybody can see this. And then you look at it on camera and it's like, just
I remember that
out there. Yeah.
It's tricky. We have
tricky every time. It's tricky.
Who was that? That was the Beastie Boys, right?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, what we're going to talk about, I found this to be an interesting question to start off the day. And I get that we all want 10,000 downloads, but this person says he wants a 0 to 60 podcast case study. And basically he says, he's been podcasting since 2020, has 200 episodes. It says, I wonder if since 2020, there have been podcasters that have started podcasts with no following, no built-in audience, no direct or indirect industry connections. So in other words, it's just a dude in a basement or a dudette. You know, he says, I've spoken to a few podcast coaches in this time, and I've not come away from those initial consultations thinking those coaches can tailor a program to my particular situation. They seem to work in self-improvement space, a big slice of the pie, but not the vineyard where I'm toiling. A podcaster can find tons of advice on Reddit, but again, mostly generic. I'm interested in learning what someone actually did to go from germ of an idea to full success. Not an early adopter, but someone who began in the last 5 or 6 years. Is it possible to look at a podcast success story and conduct a case study, much the way business school might perform with a more traditional business? So it's interesting. I like that question in a way, but Jeff C. over at the creatornewslive.com just did an episode with this guy named Mike King Jr. And he said something that I was like, oh, and in fact, Jeff, I'm using that. If Jeff is around today, I'm using this in my talk at Empowered Podcasting Conference. And that is, I could look at, let's say Jim is all over YouTube and he's talking about blah, 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 right? And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of my audience. I'm gonna talk about that. And so I do exactly what Jim does, and it doesn't work. And it turns out that Jim is doing a children's show, and I'm doing a show for people 45 to 50. Like it's not, you know, I might do something that Jim did, but number one, I'm not Jim. Like we all try to do that. Like one of the things we might talk about later today, I saw where somebody's saying it's taking too long to edit their show, and it's 3 hours long. Now, why would you do a 3-hour podcast? Oh, I know. Because you think you're Joe Rogan, and you're not. And so I just love, it's one of those like bumper sticker things, like just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because they're not you and you're not them. And it was one of those things that's kind of a duh, but it's also the more I thought about that, and one of the things I'm doing at the School of Podcasting is we're going to start weekly classes where we talk about this, and then we're going to do stuff. And that's the other thing I see people do. We kicked out sounds mean. We discontinued the free version of the School of Podcasting. It was a fun experiment. It didn't work the way we wanted it. And so I'm closing the door. I told them, it dawned on me. I woke up and I was like, oh, I forgot to close the door on the School of Pod. I was going to do that last night before I went to bed. So, you know, enjoy your last 2 hours at the School of Podcasting. But I was talking to these people and I'm like, hey, you know, are you going to stick around? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And would they be like, you know, well, did you do this? No. Well, have you tried this? And I'm like, well, okay, well, then what are you going to do? And their answer is social. Why post on social? Okay, and your show's not growing, right? Nope. Okay. Well, let's come to the conclusion that maybe that for you is not going to work. And then you're like, you got to try something else. Okay. Well, have you ever thought of starting a newsletter? And then this one guy just kept saying, well, that sounds like more work. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
a lot of work.
I don't know. It's
listen, John Lee Dumas and Pat Flynn and those guys killed themselves to get things going, right? They put in so much hustle and so much work to get things going. And I do think at the end of the day, like everybody wants the easy button. Of course, we all want the easy button. We would love to stumble upon that vein of gold in the hillside and be the one to mine it, but we're not in the mountains. You know, we never go to the mountains like, oh, if I could just find that. Yet we're never there. I think it takes an enormous amount of hustle. If you think about like a burger chains, you know, McDonald's, Burger King, right? How many other burger joints, you can't name them because they didn't make it, that started trying to follow trying to follow the McDonald's, you know, the rise of McDonald's, right? In the 60s and 70s. And you know, the guys and the ladies and the gentlemen who started those franchises to compete with McDonald's had great intentions. They probably made great burgers, but wrong timing, didn't have enough capital, didn't want to hustle enough, didn't want to just didn't get lucky.
Yeah.
They were in, you know, Fallon, Nevada. Like there's nothing out there, right?
Well, there's a YouTube channel I've been watching. A guy's name is Michael Girdley, and it's just fun to say Girdley. But he does like the rise and fall. Like he talked about how when Five Guys came on, it was new, it was different, and you know, they had a simple menu and blah blah blah. Well, the problem is then enter a bunch of other kind of premium burger places. So now there's competition. McDonald's start making value meals. So, okay, you can't get those people. And, you know, now you go to Five Guys, you get a burger, fries, and a drink, and it's $20. And you're like, you know, that's not really worth the $20. And so they're having a hard time at Five Guys.
Yeah.
When I grew up, there was I don't know if it was even a chain, but it was really popular. It was called Burger Chef. And they had commercials with Burger Chef and Jeff. And I don't know what happened, but it went away, as did Red Barn, as did, you know, Red
Barn, man, I haven't thought about that in 1,000 years.
Yeah. Jen says, a prospect asked me the other day how quickly you can get to podcasting full time. And I said, you're not going to like this answer. Yeah, that's, it takes, I just watched.
Hold on, that answer though, if you have a lot of capital, you could go to, this is what people miss, right? If you want to start your own small business, how long will it survive before it dies? Well, how much capital do you have? That's true of any small business.
Good point.
Podcasting is just a small business, right? And so how long can you live on the capital that you have? That's the question you have to ask. Because if you want to go full-time, you go full-time tomorrow. You go full-time today. Like you could just be like, you know what? I'm quitting my job. Now that's not the question they're answering or they're asking. What they want to know is, when can I quit my job and go full-time, right? That's really most of the time what they're asking. And again, if you have enough capital, you quit tomorrow and get it done. So that's really the question we have to ask. How long can you live?
And then are you going to do it? Like today, I can see the runway from my backyard. I have a air show at the bottom of my street, and people are lining up. There's a big kind of 4-lane highway, not a highway, but a street at the end of my street. And the median is big enough to where people can park their cars on it. So people are parking their cars and sitting on lawn chairs to watch all the big planes. There's like it's not a B-1 bomber, but it might as well be down at the end of my street. Okay, all those people live in Akron, Ohio. I could take a handful of business cards and just walk to the end of my street and go, hey, are you guys having fun at the show? Here's the thing you might want to check out. It's the Akron Podcast. If you want to keep up with great things that are going like this air show, we talk about it every week, and just hand out business cards. Am I going to do that? Probably not, which is sad. I know, and it's like, well, it's Saturday. I got to do Ask the Podcast Coach, and I got to get ready for the, okay. But I see a lot of people like, oh, that'd be a good idea. And they're like, you know.
Honestly, your time is better spent here.
Yeah.
Like this is your audience. These are your people. You're building brand this way, handing out business cards at an air show. Maybe if you were going to the air
Yeah.
show for entertainment
Well,
anyway, right? But
yeah.
really,
But as I
probably not.
saw, a lot of people here, because they have a lot of World War II planes, those people, if we're going to paint with a really wide brush,
Yeah.
not the youngest people on the planet,
For
maybe
sure.
not the most technically adept,
Yeah,
you
maybe.
know?
Yeah. You have
Craig,
to do it in the voice. You got to do it in the voice. Go ahead.
Craig says to quote the great Todd Cochran, you got to do the work. You just got to do the work. That's it. Get out there and do it. You can't do that no more.
I miss Todd. I miss Todd.
But Jeff says it took 30 years to be an overnight success. I binge watched The Chosen on Amazon. So it's this Christian thing where the life of Christ with his disciples, where all the disciples are buff and hot. But that then led me to watch another. It's a documentary. It's 4-part. It was kind of meh, but it was interesting, on the guy that plays Jesus. His name is Jonathan Romy or something like that. But anyway, people now think Jonathan is Jesus. Like it's beyond typecasting. They like, people come up and like, I must hug you. But it's like, okay. And what was interesting about it is he said Harold Ramis, one of the Ghostbusters and a famed director, right? Yeah. He talked to him and said, well, to be an overnight success, it takes probably 15 years, depending on who you know, probably closer to 20. Yeah. And he goes, almost to the day when I got the part to play Jesus on The Chosen, because he'd been on like Ally McBeal and a couple other, guest things. He goes, but my first starring role, 20 years to the day. And it's like, so it's not going to happen. That's why I say to people, I go, if your goal is to make money quickly, and a good point of yours, if you don't have a budget, and then it's a matter of, do you sink it into Overcast? Do you, where do you do that?
Yeah, you just have to have a ton of money if you're going to give it all that time, right? You could get lucky part-time. That could happen. You should just get, the key is, if you want to do it, just get started. Like, just stop asking questions, because you're using all these questions you're using to stall. So stop stalling and just start doing. Like, it won't go anywhere if you don't do anything. Yeah. And so I guarantee you, if you don't produce podcasts, nobody will listen. That's few guarantees in life. That's a guarantee, right? Don't make a podcast, nobody will listen. Guaranteed, right? So you just got to get out there and get started. All those guys, Dumas and Pat Flynn and who's the podcast dancer man?
Cliff Ravenscraft.
They all hustled and worked and took a risk, right? None of them knew they were going to be popular. They didn't know. They weren't going into this thing and when Dumas did the daily thing, he had no idea if it was going to work or not.
Right.
You hear him talk about it. He's like, I just killed myself to get there. Like, I worked and hustled everything to get there. And it's funny. Like, I over the last week or two, I've been trying to get a little bit more content out on the social spaces. And I just picked X because it's easy. I was there. I've got, I had a bunch of followers that I hadn't done anything on X in a long time. And I know, listen, let me get it. I know some of you have feelings about X and some of those other kinds of things. Sorry. But it was an easy place for me to go, where I had 10,000 followers already. And you know what's the amazing thing, Dave? As soon as I started, so I'm using social to help me get posts out morning and evening. So help me make some posts. We're going to do this using some UTM tracking so I can kind of see what's working and stuff. But the amazing thing that happened, as soon as I started doing it, I started getting interaction. Like, it was almost instantly. People like, oh, hey, you're back. Okay. And then things started happening. You gotta put the time in, right? You got to figure out ways to make it easy for you. You got to do that. And listen, you're not going to do one tweet or one post or one thing on LinkedIn and it's going to blow up, right? Maybe, but probably not. You got to do this regular, consistent, out there all the time, be available to people.
Yeah, Jen says these guys didn't even have a strong concept. They just wanted to make it big, fast. And that's when somebody comes up and says, what's the topic I can talk about to make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time? I usually say, please don't start a podcast. That's That's just not the way it typically works.
Although you could start a podcast to flesh out.
Yeah.
I think it's to flesh out your some of your ideas. Just get going. Like just do some live streaming and see who shows up. Have some conversations. Figure some things out. Find your voice. You just got to get going.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and Tom Webster in the house. I would hold up Tom's book, but it's over in the bedroom. But the audience is listening. Stop what you're doing. Well, don't stop this. Put us on in the background. Go to Amazon and buy that book. If your underlying goal is to get lots of attention, I hate to tell you this, but starting with a podcast is about number 98 on the ways of list to do that, which leads 100%. Me 100%. To where did my note joy go? Wolfgang Van Halen had a great thing today. Somebody posted this on Guitar World, I think it is, or Guitar Magazine. So it's a picture of Jeff Beck, the late great Jeff Beck. And apparently Jeff Beck said this about Eddie Van Halen, Wolfgang's dad. And it said, I'd love to go and see him, but I probably wouldn't stay for the whole concert. And so Wolfgang says, this post is nothing but a dog whistle to get people who hate my dad to comment and to get people who love my dad to argue back for all the engagement. Nobody reads the full caption, which includes the full quote that's being taken out of content or context. And I think that's so true. It's just like, it's not what's good content in some way. It's like, what can we get? That's like I don't want to get too political, but what's going on with the WNBA right now is just ridiculous. The one thing I love to debate and argue unless it's a really stupid conversation. But on the other hand, everybody's talking about the WNBA because there was a guy who's he's a beard. He's used to play basketball, and he's like, I'm going to identify as a woman so I can play in the WNBA, which would just be ridiculous. But the WNBA is not coming out with any kind of policy to negate this kind of, shenanigans because everybody's talking about the WNBA. Right. And I was like, why? Well, you could easily do this. So that's another type of way. If you want to get popular, I'm amazed at how much of YouTube, when I go to YouTube and I want to watch Jeff C. Yesterday, when I found Jeff's show, I was like, oh yeah, Jeff C. Because for whatever reason, the algorithm was putting up stuff where it's reaction videos. So it's, first of all, you have to behave really badly. So you do something that's just stupid. I don't know. You poke someone in the eye. Well, then somebody else takes the video of you poking someone in the eye, and they're going to comment and say something like, hey, it's not nice to poke people in the eye. And so when people search for the video about somebody getting poked in the eye, not only do they find the original poke in the eye video, but they find you commenting on the bad poke in the eye. And then someone will comment on my comment that says, no, poking people in the eye is a great way to get their attention. It's just like my favorite line from, he was on Joe Rogan and David Lee Roth said, recreational outrage, the new American pastime. And I'm just like, and I guess it gets eyeballs, but I like my entertainment too.
Not unique to America, by the way.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Not unique, but
yeah. Dan has a great point. He says any form of success can be relative too. There are a lot of very successful and famous people out there that I have no idea who they are. Lots of others do though. Yeah. It's a big world. Yeah. I was talking with someone this week and they just wanted to get their message out there. And I'm like, okay, so you're not trying to get clients. You're not trying to, nope. I just need to get this out. And they were on like episode 8 or so. And I go, well, do you realize something? Like what? And they go, your podcast is really successful. I go, you've already got hundreds of people that have heard this message. And it was kind of interesting because we always want a big, but it's like, well, no, you're doing exactly what you set out to do. People are listening to this thing. Granted, you always want more, but if you're not trying to make money and you're just having fun, congratulations, your podcast is a success. And I swear that I think one of the reasons, and I run into this a lot. I know Mark from Empowered Podcasting was saying he doesn't see that many people that want to make money. I swear the people I run into, it's always, they just eventually want to make money. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. But I swear, I think some people think it's like a stamp of approval. Like I must have value because I have an advertiser. And I'm like, that always makes me, I understand it, but I'm also like, yeah, but your show is valid because it's you and because of your expertise and your, that whole 9 yards. So,
yeah, I don't think making money is a bad motivation, right?
Right.
You need something to motivate you because after 8 to 10, this is why everybody quits after 8 to 10 episodes, right? Because you run out of motivation. You're like, what am I doing this for? It's a lot of work. It's a little, listen, the adrenaline that you have, the dopamine that your body creates when you start doing this podcast thing. You have all these hopes and aspirations. You're like, oh, this is going to be great. I can't wait to do this. And it's exciting. And recording those first couple episodes is exciting. There's a lot of adrenaline. Then you get good at it. You get better at it. You figure some things out. You get through 8 or 10. You don't get the dopamine hits that you expect because you think, oh, everybody's going to love this and they're going to give me comments. And the first couple comments you get are negative. Like,
right.
How come the microphone's in the like, I don't want to see the microphone, or, what you guys know, you've gotten those comments on, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, YouTube. And the adrenaline kind of wears off. The dopamine kind of stops.
Oh,
and you're like, oh, where'd my drug go? Like what happened to, I think we underestimate the physical effect on our bodies when we start doing these kinds of things. They're exciting in the beginning. It's a thrill. It's like going to an amusement park. We're thrilled. We're thinking we have these hopes. Like, listen, hope generates a lot of dopamine in our body to kind of like, this could be great. I'm so excited about this, right? Excitement. You do all those things. And then, a couple weeks later, it's like, oh boy, this is just work. And the dopamine is gone. And you kind of got to work your way through that phase of like, hey, I was a body drug addict. I was living for the dopamine and the adrenaline hits.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's usually, I think that's where things start to drop off. And then people get like, oh, I guess I'm not very good at this. Well, that's your body talking.
Well, Jen
talked
about this. She said, I had a client quit because they were comparing themselves to a friend's podcast that started at the same time and was doing better. Yeah. Anytime they had the most downloads, at the time they had the most downloads of any of my shows. Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy. I always tell that. And also, but to your dopamine thing, I call that the AC/DC effect. Because I remember growing up, AC/DC, like, man, you'd put on the album and you knew it immediately who it was. And then the next album came out, like, yep, that's good. And then the third album came out and they have not changed their recipe at all. Right. And so by the fifth album, you're like, did they just put new lyrics on the same song? And like by the sixth, you're like, okay, it's AC/DC. And it's, but on the other hand, if they had changed and started to do a little jazz or blues, they would have been crucified. What are you doing? We love your formula. It's just the same formula. So, yeah. Hey, coming up, we've got Jim's going to get his nerd on, and we've got a question from Chris about what do you do when nothing is working. But in the meantime, we're going to take this time to say thank you to our awesome supporters. You can be an awesome supporter by going askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. So people like AI Goes to College, creatornewslive.com. I talked about that earlier. And of course, Ralph's in the chat room. So contentcreators.com. We're going to be talking about AI. And if you want some AI love, go to AIGoesToCollege.com. All sorts of fun people there on that page when you go again to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. I mentioned we're going to be doing growth strategies starting live this week at the School of Podcasting. You can save by using the coupon code COACH when you sign up. And of course, that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you go to askthepodcastcoach.com, you are looking at Podpage. And if you want to check out Podpage, go over to trypodpage.com. Or if you go, I think this goes to the same place. If you go to podpage.com/preview, you can start a 14-day free trial. And if you need more Jim Collison, and hey, who doesn't? Just go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Home Gadget Geeks. And yeah, I will be November 7th in Indianapolis. You mentioned the podcast Answer Man. He will be doing a next level workshop at PodIndy. Go to podindy.com. That's a one-day conference. It's always a lot of fun. I've been there pretty much every year since it's there, and you get to meet a ton of people, and it's easy to get to, easy venue, podindy.com. And it's time to spin the wheel o' names. So we will go over here, and I'll do my new little trick that I just found where it says share this tab instead. So will it be Ralph? Will it be Chef C? Will it be John Muntz or Ed from Sonic Cupcake? We're going to spin the wheel, and survey says it's going to be Glenn, or nope, it's going to be the one and only. No, it is Glenn. That's weird. Oh, because they're both white backgrounds. It's Glenn from the Horse Radio Network. If you like horsies, go over to horseradionetwork.com. They've been doing see, that says cast ahead. That's weird. And also Glenn has now disappeared. Oh, because it took it off the thing. Anyway, it's they just went over 4,000 episodes. Holy cow, that is a whole lot of episodes. And if you find this show gives you value, maybe we saved you some time, we saved you some money, saved you some headaches, maybe we made you think today, brothers and sisters, just go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. I understand that when you actually give back, your heart grows, a size and a half, just like the Grinch. So again, go over and check us out. But yeah,
in case you haven't seen it, Ralph's hanging out in the queue down there. He might be at the very bottom. So
hold on, I see you. Oh,
scroll down. Yeah,
I did not see.
Yeah,
there we go. So we're gonna do this. There we go. And if I do this, I could even make Ralph big. Ooh.
Oh boy, now I'm super big.
Here you go. How's it going, buddy?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
I wanted to comment about the getting yourself big, making something. And I think the biggest problem I've seen with podcasters is they're trying to solve a money problem with a microphone. And I think that's a real dangerous place to be. And I'm actually going to be talking about this on Friday at the Empower Podcasting 3. I'm going to talk about some practical steps to actually get yourself in a financial position to where you can go and spend money on your podcast. Because I think so many people put the cart before the horse. And they try to jump into this as a side gig. They try to jump this as a full-time gig, but they haven't built a runway for themselves, and they're still having struggles personally with their finances. And that's the kind of stuff I help people with.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's the thing is when because I've gone bankrupt before, and when you're broke, you're trying to do anything. And the problem is you don't, where did John's comment go? My goal is to build an audience. If I can build an audience, like Dave says, I can monetize you monetize an audience. Don't monetize a podcast. And the problem is it takes a while to build up an audience. And if you're strapped for cash, then going back to Jim's point, you can't promote your show. And then you've got to have not just a good show, but a remarkable show that inspires people to share it with their friends. And that's not an easy, thing to do. So,
yeah, and you got to build yourself some buffer too. I think that's a lot of people that jump into this don't think about that.
Yeah,
is you've got to build that buffer. You got to build that lane. That's why simple things like an emergency fund, getting your debts paid off, knowing what's coming in, all those things are huge helps to the independent content creators, because that's what you really need to focus on first. Once you get that done, that gives you the ability to do more things.
Yeah, Jim brought up John Lee Dumas. That guy had like 6 figures in the bank from all his army stuff and all this other things he had done. So when he decided to go podcasting full time, he had a really long runway before he had to start.
Also super disciplined in the way, in the way he approached it. Right. It was for him. Listen, I don't know very many business owners, small business owners, who haven't killed themselves creating their business. Right. It just takes, I hate to break the news to you, it just takes work. And so you're going to have to get out there, get after it, get busy. It almost kills them. And I've watched a lot of folks start businesses, and I wish there was a healthy way to do it. I don't know the recipe, because most of the successful business owners I know have really gone after it. And I think the same's true with podcasting. I think you got to get after it. If you're going to do this, you got to figure out some ways to get after it.
Yeah, Tom's got a great point. He says the hard decision here, how do you derive value from making a podcast? Intrinsically or extrinsically? People who quit, paint or write, don't quit because they can't monetize it. They make their art. Yeah. If you're a writer, you write. There's the lead singer from Stryper Stryper has a new album coming out. He just put out a new solo album. Like, if you stand next to this guy for 20 minutes, he will write a song. Why? Because that's what he does. And when he's not doing that, he'll do an album with a guitar player from Dokken. Like, he's just every week he's got new music coming out. Why? Because he's a songwriter. And I'm sure a lot of those are not burning up the charts, but that's what he does. So excellent. So Ralph, where can we send people to find more about you?
So RalphEstepJR.com.
There we go. Thanks for your input, buddy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend.
Hey, I'm going to say I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up this quick question and then we'll jump over because we can answer this one kind of quickly. What do you do when you can't get anything to work?
Go to bed. You go to bed. That's what you do.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The other thing is write down everything you've done.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is in some cases, I used to do this when we were troubleshooting copy machines, and you would end up doing the same test 2 or 3 times because you're frustrated, you're, aggravated, and you're not making great decisions. And you go, whoa, did we check the power supply of the thing? And you're like, no, there's power. Okay, well, you're wasting time because you've already checked that twice, and that's when you start looking for your keys in the freezer, right? You're like, I've looked everywhere in the house. Like, well, they might be in the freezer. Okay, let's figure out where they are. It's just one of those things where write down what you've done so far because you've already determined that didn't work.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. You mentioned using UTMs to track stuff again, but that's more work. It takes me another 6 seconds to make a link. No, it's not.
It's not really that much more work. Yeah. You can listen. There's some amazing things that happen when we sleep in our thought processes, right? Our brain begins to defrag. It's the word we used back in the old Windows days.
Yeah.
Begins to defrag. It's working on the problem while you're sleeping. Dave, I cannot tell you how many times I've been struggling with something at 11:30, and you're like, okay, just 5 more minutes. I need to figure this out. Just 5 more minutes, right? And then it's all of a sudden it's 1:30. The 5 minutes turned into an hour and a half. I should have went to bed. Should have went to bed at 11, thought about the process. I like to think about it kind of as I'm going to sleep. For me, that's relaxing. I know that sounds weird, but it's relaxing for me. And then almost always the next day in the shower, boom, the answer just comes to you. And you're like, why didn't I think of this last night? It's because you needed the sleep to reorganize your brain. So the next day you would have that answer.
Oh, man.
And so just when you're struggling with those kinds of things, just go to bed or walk away. Get away from.
Going back to my days as a copier repairman, when you couldn't fix it, you would bring out, I think his name was Jim. And Jim would come in, look at it, test a couple of things. He's like, all right, it's time for a cigarette. And he would go outside and smoke a cigarette. And almost every time he would come in and have the answer. And I go, how did you figure that out? He goes, I smoked a cigarette. And he goes, when I go outside and think about it and quit, he goes, it's the break from thinking about it that when I come back in, he goes, it's usually pretty obvious. St. Clinton, I'm going to take a quick tangent here, was talking about how he used to do security for Aerosmith and they played blues music. They sounded great. Wish they had put out a blues album. Honkin' on Bobo. Go into Spotify, look for Honkin' on Bobo. They did a blues album. So there you go. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's time.
And now, he's been waiting for this. It's time for Jim to get his nerd on.
Hey, do you remember what I said?
Yes, you were using AI.
Yeah.
To you were using it with guests. And
okay.
Vetting guests.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just totally lost. I totally lost where we were going on this, but I should have wrote it down as speaking of brain defrags. Yeah, one of the things I've been using, and I've been using ChatGPT because it probably knows me the best out of all of them at this point. I have a paid account for that. I have the $20 paid account. But I've begun in ChatGPT to feed it. You get those emails from folks wanting to be on your podcast or the pitch to you or whatever, those kinds of things. I've just been so I told ChatGPT, hey, I want you to be a PR assistant for me. And I'm going to give you these emails and I want you to do some research work 1, are they legit? 2, are they showing up any other place? 3, how should I respond to them? And some of them I delete. Let's just be honest. You've seen these emails. They're not worth anything. Just delete them. But a few of them, you're like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. So I take the email, copy and paste it in. It'll do the research for me. And then I say, what should I, if they'll say, yeah, they're legit or they're not. I haven't had a not yet, but they're legit. I said, okay, make an email that I can send back. And it'll write out an email. I send it back. It literally takes a minute, maybe 2, right? A fast way to help you kind of start to kind of triage all these. I think some of them, I've gotten 3, 4, 5 guests on Home Gadget Geeks that have been really good.
Nice.
Just through a process like this. So I don't think they're all junk, but I needed some way to kind of triage them. And so this has been helpful to me in the space to kind of create that, that system, so to speak.
Nice. Z-Man has a quick question. Dave, just heard you canceled the free version of the School of Podcasting, but will your consultations and or podcast hot seat still be available? Yes. It's now called fixmypodcast.com. So that's been rebranded now 3 times, from Podcast Rodeo Show to Podcast Hot Seat to now Fix My Podcast. And if you're a member of the School of Podcasting, A, you get 5 hours of one-on-one consulting with me, and B, you have podcast listener parties. So if you want feedback, that's it. And John had asked, what is a UTM? That is a, I forget, universal tantrum modulator. I don't know. It's a thing that Google uses. It just puts it, when you see like, askthepodcastcoach.com, question mark equals blah, 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 really long thing. If you have Google Analytics on your website, and you have Google Analytics on your website, right? Then when you go into your Google Analytics, you can say, oh, this came from Twitter. This came from Threads. This came from Blue Sky. Oh, this came from, we don't know, or some other website. So they're free. It takes like 10 seconds to do that.
It's a really ugly URL though.
Really ugly.
Very ugly URL.
Yeah. And Daphne wanted to know here, what's the podcast pre-flight check before takeoff? The one thing that we haven't talked about, and nobody likes to talk about this, we're talking strategies over here. Ooh. Try this, try the newsletter, try this. It doesn't seem like any of this is working. It might be the content. Yeah. Oops. Oh, did I say that out loud? It might be the content. And that's where, it drives me bonkers. I want to bang my head against the wall when I go, so what did your audience say when you read the book, The Audience is Listening by Tom Webster, and you made yourself a survey, or you just used the built-in one that's in Podpage, and what did they say? And you go, oh, I didn't do one? Or, and this one hurts. I know it hurts. I did one and nobody answered. Well, in the immortal words of Neil Peart, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. So the good news is you figured out that your audience is not engaged at all, or because there's always an or, maybe you didn't make it clear how to take the survey. Maybe you didn't make it clear on how they're going to benefit if they fill out the survey. It's always hard, but in the end, if nobody fill out your survey, and I've been there, Weekly Web Tools, boy, I begged for, please fill out nothing. And the only time I got any kind of reaction from the audience is when I said, I think I'm going to stop doing the show. Then they came out they're like, no, don't do this. Don't and I was like, well, hey, fill out this. And it's like, so
always, you always got to threaten. This is why some of those retail stores, like, we're closing, jewelry stores do this. We're closing. And then 6 months later, we're still closing, right? That gets you there. I, this week, took an old post at theaverageguy.tv from like 2014 and redid it to bring it up to 2026 standards, so to speak, the way I write today. But I left the nostalgia stuff in there. Like, tech guys love nostalgia. Like, we always loved, remember, the x86, blah, 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 Linux, blah, 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 Windows phones, blah, blah. So I kind of left the nostalgia in, but updated it for today's, for today's reading. And then at the end, I was like, I'd like to hear from you, like, what nostalgia things, or what do you remember? What was a product that was great, but didn't live up to the hype? But fully expected them to put it in the comments on the at the averageguy.tv. You know what they all did? They all came back to Discord where I'd posted it
Oh, wow.
and left the comments there. And it got 7 or 8 comments, right? Within 6 hours. And I was like, okay, all right, that's a signal, right? For me, it's like, oh, okay, there's a type for me. There's a type of content. I leaned into the nostalgia, but I kept it current for today. I got a signal. So what should I do next? Create another one like that, right?
Yeah.
Go find some older content, bring it up. By the way, AI assisted. AI is great at this. AI assisted, and was able to bring. Although, to be honest with you, I spent probably 3 hours on that post, reading, revising, giving AI prompts, helping me. I'm not as good of a writer as it is, but it's not as good as the ideas that I have. And so we partnered together to kind of create that and post it. But it's a signal for me now, Dave. It's like, oh, okay, I've got to pay attention. I might want to this week find another post that I can bring up to speed and do something similar. That's a signal, friends. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
When you see those kinds of things, you need to act on them. Not tomorrow, today.
Well,
Right.
Speaking of nostalgia, my talk at Empowered Podcasting, I talk a little bit about this, but on this slide that we're looking at, there's Barbie, there's Mario Brothers, there's Top Gun, all those things, all those movies worked partly due to nostalgia. And Disney's really trying to pull that string a lot. The problem is, like with the Moana movie, it hadn't been gone long enough for us to miss it. So, and Disney's just, in my book, they're come up with a new idea. Oh, and Dan has come through UTM urchin tracking module. Not
urchin.
That's an urchin. It sounds like a verb. I'm urchin to do
my urchin's getting a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was universal. That's what I thought it was a universal tracking. But
yeah.
okay.
Urchin, yeah. These parameters have been somewhat a standard, so other analytics providers work with it too, like PostHog, Fathom, and such. In fact, even Pod Chapters, I believe, has a thing where you can add. There we go. Pod Chapters now supports automatic UTM parameters. There you go. So if somebody's clicking on your chapter, you can see where, hey, somebody clicked on something in a chapter. And if you're watching, listening, whatever, when we get to, like at the beginning of the show, we talk about Mark over at podcastbranding.co and Dan at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. I put their artwork up there, and there's a link for you to click on them as well as that. Tom says, I'm here for quotes from the professor.
Nice.
Yes.
Thanks for coming out, Tom. Good to see you.
Good
to see you.
Let's see what else. Favorite survey question. If the show went away tomorrow, what would you miss most? Sometimes the answer is nothing. Sometimes it's the thing you should double down on. The eulogy question. Yeah, that's one of those things that I talk about in my talk coming up, is to just like lean into you. And if you I don't know, think of, okay, so Jim, when you think about the movie E.T., any phrase come to your head?
The E.T. phone home.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I didn't do this on purpose. I just noticed one day that I say the phrase back in the day a lot.
Oh, you do?
And the older I get, and so then I started, because it made me feel old, that I started going back in the day. And like, I remember once I was talking to somebody and I said, well, back in the day. And they got this huge grin like, oh, he just said, it's like watching the old lady say, let's date ourselves, shall we?
Yeah.
Like watching the old lady saying, where's the beef? So
if you got to meet the lady, that's the thing. Like you can't, if you got to meet the lady who was that voice, right? That's kind of the, but those, Dave, those little mannerisms, if we call them, or Daveisms, as we'll call them for you, like you have your own, I have mine, right? We all have them, but people rely on those. They wait for those. They're looking, the reason they're listening to you is because they like those. If they didn't like them, they'd be gone, right? And so your advice to lean in is so perfect. Like, be who you are. It's hard to fake, there are folks on radio who are faking it, right? For sure. Yeah. There's folks on radio who are faking it for sure. but it's hard to maintain that fakeness for very long. And maybe you're better at it than I am, but I just couldn't do it over the last 15 years of podcasting. So be you, right? Find your sweet spot. Find things that people respond to, right? You know, the dancing thing that we do in the beginning of the show, that was just because I started that because the music, you know, it's so upbeat, and I just started doing that, and then you were like, I guess I need to dance, and like that's us. Nobody, you know, I'm sure there are folks who dance at the beginning of their podcasts, but that's part of our shtick, right? That's what we do. That's our thing.
Ellen stole it from us if she was still on the radio. Yes. If you haven't bought this book yet, The Audience is Listening, a little guide to building a big podcast. And the fun thing is when you track your stuff, like I've sent over 1,000 clicks to this book on Amazon. So, you know, I can see, and by doing that, like I didn't realize this until I did an episode a couple weeks ago about, hey, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, I'm thinking of becoming a creator, what book would you recommend? And one of the ones I recommended was this one. I'm like, hey, go listen to that. But I also discovered something that I didn't really know. And that is my audience loves to read. Like I had like literally I'll get, you know how you get the occasional unasked for, hey, that was a good show. Like that's nothing better when somebody goes, hey man, that last episode was really good. And you get an occasional one here and then I had like 10 people say, man, that was a great episode. I made a lot of notes and I'm going to read some of those books. And I was like, okay, note to self, your audience likes to read, you know? So I didn't know, there was a part of me that was like, this could really like just land flat. Like, what if nobody reads? They're going to go, I don't know, green eggs and ham. I'm like, what do you do?
They also like Pinky. Well, maybe that's just me. I just like Pinky.
The Pinkster, man. Yeah. Let's see. So what do you think about the whole AI EU fines, man?
I love that guy. Pinky, you're so crazy.
Pinky, you're so crazy. Yeah. I posted a short this week, which got a ton of traction. I feel like we're moving back to the original content away from AI. You know what? I know a little bit about this. This is something where I could comment a lot about this, but I heard about it on Pod News and have not done. I just say I hate to paint with a big wide brush, but the more I hear about quote freedom of speech in Europe-ish, it seems like it's being curtailed. But again, I haven't really done my homework on that. I've only seen, and when you're getting your news from shorts, that's usually not good.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this, Jim?
I don't. Not enough to talk about it smartly.
Yeah. That's it. So
but the concept, though, to Ralph's concept of moving, like, are we moving? There's this, of course, with AI coming on, this huge burst of new AI content. There's always going to be a reaction to that, like, and people are going to respond and react. And I'm seeing more and more YouTube content come out. That's it. It's 100% AI for the most part, right? Although that takes creativity to make. I mean, some of them are pretty good. It's for folks who don't necessarily want to show their face or be the voice or whatever, and that's okay. It's a style. I think we're going to move into that world where it's going to be okay for the most part. But it is. Will we move back to more human centric? Probably. There'll be some movement back and forth with that, and then eventually it'll find its center, and we'll kind of move on from it. I don't think there's anything wrong either way by doing it. It is a way to be creative. It was kind of like, most artists who used to paint are now doing digital art. And you're like, well, is that wrong? No, I mean, that's still art. I'm still on even digital. I'm still making stick figures. Like I'm not good at it. Right. Some folks are really, really, really good at it with those tools. And so I think this current AI will get merged into the creative, ecosystem of what we're doing. And it will stop becoming, it'll stop becoming an issue. We don't necessarily even talk about like translations or transcriptions anymore. They're 100% AI driven for the most part, super convenient. Nobody's complaining about those or finding problems in the way that we're doing that. So I think we'll find some center, but we may be coming back a little bit. Coming back.
It should be interesting. I would like to know if something was AI. Although somebody made a great point. They go, "Do you know if Stephen King used a typewriter, a word processor, or did he dictate? Cujo?"
Maybe he was dictating.
Yes. So I was like, all right. I guess it's Jai says, what are your thoughts on the new podcast using distribution and clipping as a leverage to grow their podcast? And again, I will go to, can I go here and share? Let me do this and just share, because there's a great quote from a guy named Tom Webster that I quote all the time. So Tom, thank you for
getting some run.
Tom,
put the check in the mail. Jeez.
Yeah, that's it. And that is, let me pull it up. This is in the School of Podcasting. So hopefully you see the School of Podcasting now, Jim, right? A great summary.
I do, yeah.
Okay, he says, this was from Sounds Profitable, and I will put this link in the show notes. Clips recruit, audio persuades. So Clips recruit, man, I cannot talk. Clips recruit, audio persuades, video demonstrates, social carries the reach, and newsletters. That's the thing that keeps the relationship warm in between all of those. And that's from the Podcast Atlas. You can find that at soundsprofitable.com. But yeah, so to me, I see that as look at that. Woohoo, where's my David Lee Roth thing? He threw us a bone. I can't find, where's my music? See on what was the other thing we used to use? Here we go.
Tom.
Whoa! Yes.
I did not mean to guilt you into that, Tom. That is not my intention. I'm sorry, but I love it. It was great.
But if you are a person that is trying to create some sort of media kit or something of that nature, Sounds Profitable is a great resource, because it kind of drives me bonkers that Tom and Brian and the whole team over there keep going, look, podcasting beats everything. Here's another thing that shows how great podcasting is. And yet I keep hearing how CPMs are going down. And I'm like, how can that be when, like, look, it's great. This is the best product ever. So I don't know if I will probably talk to Tom at Podcast Movement about that. Because that's the head scratcher that I don't get. Dan says lots of the backlash against the tech corporations building A on the backs of stealing IP and getting away from it. Not so much that the tech is, that's the tricky part.
That's the sneaky little crack or chink in the AI armor, right? Is this the stealing of content? And that comes up from time to time, and we're gonna have to deal with this in some way. It's gonna have to be dealt with, right? It's gonna have to be regulated in some way. We're gonna have to figure out how to get the content creators that this stuff comes from compensated for that. It's gonna have to be. We have to figure this out.
It is going to be tricky.
Going on forever. It has to be figured out for sure.
Well, Jim, what is coming up on theaverageguy.tv over on Home Gadget Geeks?
Yeah, work week this week. So I had to do a work podcast, so nothing over there at theaverageguy.tv, but those weeks give my listeners some time to catch up. And so you too, if you take a week off, just say, hey, not all your listeners are current. Just say a week to catch up. They'll appreciate you for that as well. And it's nice to get some time off as well. So
yeah,
you can check out the newest content, theaverageguy.tv. Sorry.
And if you're using Podpage, you can go to homegadgetgeeks.com/follow, and you'll see all the links to Apple and Spotify there. And speaking of Spotify, Dave is going to answer the question, hey, Dave, what's your beef with Spotify? And I did a lot of research on all the things that Spotify said it was going to do and then didn't, and all the things they did do that they then canceled. And so we're going to answer that question. We're also going to talk about the new requirements for YouTube and why that may not really apply to you. As we already talked about today, YouTube is a great tool for discovery, not so much retiring on the, I'll have to go see what CPM I'm making on YouTube. I think it's around $4. So I make, whatever, $4, $5 a month on YouTube because that's not my primary thing. So we're going to be talking about that. I might also throw in Ray Ortega. Talking about what? You'll have to tune in to find out, but that might fit in with this week's discussion. But thanks to everyone showing up this week, and
no show next week, right?
No show next week. Yes, I will be in North Carolina at Empowered Podcasting. You can find that at empoweredpodcasting.com. be hanging out with Mark and Ralph and everybody else. And so this would be a time where you can go to askthepodcastcoach.com/follow and go check out an older episode. Go back to the first one. It's cringeworthy. So we'll see you next week or in 2 weeks. Take care.